Talking with Susan RoAne today. Susan, I'm so grateful that you've taken just a couple of minutes out of your busy schedule. I understand you're leaving for vacation tomorrow. Is that right?
Right, and it's a vacation in Vegas, and I want everyone to know I'm not going to gamble. I'm going to see family, and because I want to be where it's 115 degrees.
Exactly. You're thinking vacation. Let me go melt somewhere.
It's melting and mingling. I don't know if it's a match.
It sounds like a new book coming up. Well, Susan,
Whoa.
you are the mingling maven, as you have titled yourself, and you really kind of wrote the book on how to work a room, literally, and we're going to have a link to that book here in the newsletter as well as on the video. But I thought maybe you and I could get together for just a few minutes and talk to people about, because I think we've all been there. We've gone to an event, whether it's a networking event, a party, a convention, whatever it is, and we feel that awkwardness of not knowing exactly how to strike up conversations or feeling uncomfortable with talking to strangers. And I'm sure you've run into that a lot with people in your work, right?
Well, in fact, when I ask people how many people are comfortable, it's in my audiences, honestly, it's never more than 5 people who say, oh yes, I'm comfortable. And that could be in an audience of 300. So they think the thing I'd want to say to the people watching the video is, if you think about walking into a room full of strangers and you find it daunting, you're normal. You're not alone. Everyone in that room, almost everyone feels the same way.
We almost worry about you if you don't feel uncomfortable, huh?
Yeah, because we go, who raised that person?
So if we all feel that way, and it doesn't matter whether, obviously from that, it doesn't matter whether we consider ourselves an introvert or an extrovert or whatever, we all feel that way. So what are some simple things that we can implement? Because, this is summertime for most of us. It's a time when we're going to conventions, we're doing those sorts of activities. What are some simple things we can do to kind of get ready in advance for going to that event where we're going to have to talk to strangers?
Okay, first thing, prepare. Make sure that you visit the website. You know what's going on. You know who might be there. A lot of conventions online will put on in one of their links who's already responded and said they're going to be there. You can use LinkedIn, Google, Bing, even Facebook, maybe Google Plus, to check some of the people out. Some people you might know. This also applies to a wedding. This applies to your nephew's graduation party where he's going to invite his friends who you don't know. Let's do our homework. We'll do our homework for other things, but we forget to spend 5 minutes figuring out who we can talk to when we're going to be somewhere for 3 hours or 3 days. So do your due diligence.
I was just, let me interrupt you for a second. I was just, as you were talking, I was just thinking, I took a speech class in college, and one of the things that they taught us was the number one way to overcome stage fright is to know your subject, to know what you're talking about thoroughly. And so that only makes sense that if we go into an event already knowing who people are and having some topics of conversation ready to go, that does a lot to kind of ease the nerves, doesn't it?
Yes, I had a client who told me his daughter, he was in awe of her. She was 20. She was invited to a neighbor's party. They went to different schools, but they were friends on Facebook. So she went to her neighbor's Facebook page and saw the other friends and found out this one just came back from 2 weeks in India. This one was doing an internship. And because of that, and because she prepared, she went to that party and she came back and said to her dad, I had a great time. Because she talked to the people that she saw. So we really can combine that online opportunity with the offline face-to-face. And it's with anything. If you're prepared, if you know your subject. And by the way, I'm going to give everyone a very special Susan RoAne hint. If someone brings up something that you don't know, don't feel embarrassed. The best thing you could say is, I'm not familiar. Could you share more?
Yeah, because that gives you a great opportunity then to make them feel like they're the expert and they're educating you, which always makes people feel good, right?
Right, and the other opportunity is you get to learn something, but you're inviting someone to converse with you. They will become more comfortable. You'll hear something that'll spark a question or a story that you'll share, and then there's a dialogue.
That's the key. When it comes right down to it, that's what we're hoping to create.
We're hoping to create. But here's the other thing. Okay, I'm going to sound like everyone's 5th grade teacher. Read the local papers and a national paper. I don't care if you read it in print, and I get 3 papers delivered in print, which is why I wash my hands 12 times a day. But I also read online. Be prepared. Know what's going on in your profession, in your community, in your neighborhood. Know what's going on in the world. And, I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, so we were all up in arms and thrilled when the Warriors won, the NBA championship. That's what we talked about. Right now, people are just talking about the women's soccer team, the U.S. soccer team. Know what's going on. And who isn't talking about Minions and Inside Out and Magic Mike? I mean, we're talking about things that I know some people listening are going to say, well, Susan, that's small talk, and I really can't do small talk, and I don't like it. Stop saying that. Small talk is the biggest talk we do, because that's how we get to know who went to the same school, who goes out for the same pizza, and you and I had the big pizza conversation. But when we find these little things, oh, you have a 2-year-old nephew, so do I, and then you compare terrible 2 notes. But once you find that little link, everything changes. And it can only happen if you're willing to be forthcoming, share some information, hear what people are saying, ask a question so that they can share more, and then you have the nuggets for your networking conversation.
The big conversations may not happen if you don't have the small talk first.
Thank you. And if I read one more article from some online magazine that someone writes, well, get to the point, do the nuggets of them. Really? You meet someone and you're going to start talking about famine and war and hostilities? I don't think so. You start small. You start with the things you have in common. What was the traffic like getting there? Oh, and if it's a buffet, how do you like those hors d'oeuvres? Start with something little. By the way, people, Dave, talk about food more than they talk about anything, and the publishing world knows it. That's what I read a book that said, one year they'll have all these bestseller of cookbooks. The next year, all the bestsellers are diet books, which I thought was hysterical.
If you think people aren't interested in food, just look at your Instagram account, right?
Right, and I'm embarrassed to say, if I put one more plate of French fries on Facebook. Do you see what we just did?
Exactly.
Started and we went somewhere else, and you had that experience and I shared. Conversation can feel so nerve-wracking, but once it's started and you go with the attitude of, hey, I'm going to have a good time, that attitude will serve you. If you go somewhere going, well, what am I doing here? And I'm too busy and I can't stand small talk and I don't like the food, then you're really going to paint yourself into a corner.
Such great advice. Susan, I am just blown away. Obviously, you know your stuff. You wrote the book, How to Work a Room, and encourage everybody to get that book. We'll have a link here on the video and on the newsletter as well. So thank you for taking these few minutes, and have a great vacation.
Thank you, and you have a great summer.
Put $10 on red for me if you don't mind.
Okay.
Thanks.